distance, and layout makes walking and cycling impractical for many users. Compounding this, no traffic survey has been undertaken that includes Barkway Road, which significantly undermines the credibility of the transport evidence submitted. The proposal also relies on indicative pedestrian and cycle routes across town council land, which are neither agreed nor considered realistic. Finally, the town council unanimously resolved on the 2nd of February 2026 to continue its opposition to this application. That position remains firm. In summary, this proposal is unsustainable, conflicts with the local plan, lacks deliverable access, and would result in unacceptable harm to protected green space. For these reasons, Royston Town Council respectfully requests that the appeal be dismissed. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes.
Hello, I'm Dr. Alexander Matthews. I'm speaking Alexander Matthews.
Sorry, Alexander
Matthews. Two T's.
Two T's.
Thank
you.
So I'm speaking as a resident. I've lived in Royston for 9 years, and I've lived on Limekiln Close for 2.5 years. Limekiln Close is at the top of the, well, not the very top of the Barkway Road, but just past.
I know where Limekiln Close is. Thank
Okay,
you
know where Limekiln Close is. Oh, sorry, I should have said also I consent to clarifications and questions from yourself, but not to be cross-examined.
Okay.
I am a father of 2.
Okay.
Yeah. You still hear me?
Yes, I can.
Sorry, I've not used one of these before. So I'm mindful of time. I can see the inquiry has already got a lot on the agenda. I do feel some sense of responsibility to the residents who were unable to attend. There were many interested parties, and so I will attempt to summarize my personal impression of what many of those people think and how it relates to the more technical aspects of this. So there were hundreds of objections to this proposal from residents, strongly opposed, and now it's easy to dismiss residents because they don't have technical know-how in a context like this, but actually these were not spurious or everyday reasons. The concerns of residents were above and beyond the concerns that were, for instance, expressed on the recently accepted proposals. Before I lived at the top of before I lived on Limekiln Close, I actually lived near Bellows Fields, and I would describe the opposition to this Barkway development as significantly beyond and more concerned than what I saw with Bellows Fields. My contention also is that the concerns of residents, far from being spurious, are in fact very similar to the spirit of the technical objections that have been made by the council and the Residents' Alliance. And if I were to summarize those main concerns, it would be that the traffic system is already showing serious signs of strain, and that the proposed sustainable mitigations are totally unrealistic. As we have already heard, the main road access is has a single lane passage near the Barkway Road. Anyone with residents who has had the misfortune of encountering the regular school coach towards Barkway will tell you that frequently causes the road to seize up, and residents have to improvise to, for instance, pull onto the pavement. I believe there may be some footage of that even later in the inquiry. The road is unavoidably steep because of the simple physical fact of the elevation change. As a reasonably fit and healthy adult, I was impressed to hear that Councillor Brown has managed to cycle up that, I would certainly struggle myself. Most of the cyclists I see going up that stretch are look, they're in their lycra, they're up on the pedals. I have a 9-year-old daughter who can ride a bike. I certainly don't think she'd be able to ride up that stretch of road, and I wouldn't let her in any case, because I would view that as seriously unsafe, given all the complicated dance that already has to go on that stretch of road. So there's going to be a lot of technical evidence about the traffic situation, the sustainable transport situation. It can be possible even for professionals to get bogged down in the detail, but the main town supermarket, if you just look on Google Maps, as I did this morning, it listed as about a 42-minute walk to the entrance of this site. There is one secondary school in Royston, and again, if you just ask Google Maps how long it would take to walk to the entrance of this site from that secondary school, it would be about half an hour. So I believe Mr. Frisbee is speaking later in the proceedings on behalf of Mode Traffic, and there was some discussion about the video evidence. I don't know if this is considered significant, but I too requested this video evidence from Mr. Frisbee in August 2025. He replied that was only for the eyes of Herts Highways. Honestly, I don't know what the legal situation is with that, but I think it would have demonstrated willingness to engage with concerned local residents to disclose all of the data that had been taken. And in particular, I think that given that many residents have been baffled about how this could have got this far, it would have alleviated their concerns if such a thing were possible. So I think that would be the end of what I had to say. Thank you for listening. This is not in the local plan. The level of consultation with residents as such has been minimal, and my view is that this is a fundamentally flawed application.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes. Are you going to read out your printout? Have you got copies for everyone? Yeah, if you could hand out copies to everyone, I'll accept that. Thank you. Okay, yes. Have you got a copy for the council? Okay. And can I ask that you find a mic, please?
How's that?
Yep, that's fine. Thank you. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, Inspector. My name is Alexander Bukhari. I'm speaking on behalf of the residents. I'm one of the residents and in opposition to the development. Just to touch on my background, I have a PhD in computational materials science, and I work in academia as a research software engineer. And as such, I would like to focus on the traffic modeling in the 2021 and 2025 TAs. Specifically in the 2025, actually. So the modeling in the 2025 traffic assessment presents an optimistic picture, but its predictive value really depends entirely on the assumptions, the input data, and the conditions that it attempts to represent. So in my view, the evidence base is actually too narrow to support the conclusions that they draw from the modeling. So the 2025 survey, some of these points were already touched on, but just to reiterate briefly, was essentially a one-day manual traffic count undertaken for 6 hours in December. So December is not one of the Department for Transport's preferred neutral survey months. And the tag guidance actually recognizes that although manual traffic counts are often collected on a single day, it also states that automated traffic counts should be conducted for at least 2 full weeks to accompany that. And ATCs actually increase the usefulness of the junction turning counts, particularly on the entry and the exit arms. And more broadly, the ATCs actually help relate the survey data to more stable long-term flows, which is actually relevant here, identify whether conditions are typical, again, very relevant, and provide data from which actual confidence intervals can be calculated. So actually, how certain are we that the modeling is representative of what one sees over a longer term? That was not done, as far as I'm aware, and having read both reports. TAG actually also provides indicative 95% confidence intervals. So should you not do the automated counting, you should at least have acknowledged and reflect in the assessment that you have confidence intervals available to you and apply them accordingly. And that was not done. So the applicant relies on a manual traffic count from a non-neutral month without supporting ACT data when the gyratory and Barkway Road are actually observed under free-flowing conditions. But there's no discussion or attempt to quantify the uncertainty. So there's no error bars in the modeling, no confidence intervals on the data, and no propagation of that uncertainty in the model, which is probably a non-linear model. If the observations missed infrequent but recurrent congestion, queues or blockages, then the report provides no numerical assessment of how often those conditions actually occur or what effect they may have. So, but we as residents, we know these conditions do occur because the residents have provided numerous photos and videos showing that the Barkway Road and gyratory regularly operate outside of these free-flowing conditions. And then consequently, the proposed mitigation then by construction cannot address the actual greatest concerns when you have non-free-flowing conditions. A similar problem appears in the treatment of Barkway Road in terms of the parked cars. So the technical note dismisses the issue in a single statement saying flow is not affected by the presence of parked cars on approach to the gyratory and Barkway Road. However, the residents know actually, and as you've already heard, Barkway operates as a de facto single-lane road with a formal turn-based system. So this flow constraint is not considered in the modeling. It may not have a major effect on the light traffic, we know that, but it actually becomes critical when the traffic is busy because the queuing from Barkway Road onto the gyratory then impedes traffic trying to progress up Barkway from the gyratory because that single lane is being blocked by the queue. And to illustrate the uncertainty, I actually ran some Monte Carlo simulations, varying key inputs across some plausible ranges, so adding some error bars. And then one looks at the effect of the de facto lane, one lane alternating section. So that's not intended to be a precise forecast or replace the modeling done by the appellant, but it's really a sensitivity test of the uncertainty that should have been included in the model. So, and I found at least in the weekday AM case, including parked car constraint really increased the medium maximum queue from 9 to 16 vehicles. And the probability of at least a queue of 15 vehicles rose from about 15% to 56%. So I really think this shows that the modeling outcome is materially sensitive to real-world constraints that the applicant has disregarded in their modeling assessment. I was also going to cover the sustainability case, but I think Ruth and the other councils have actually done that, not verbatim, but very similar to how I would have phrased it in terms of the actual gradient of the hill and the ability to cycle or walk there. So I will skip reiterating that point. However, what they haven't mentioned is actually some reference to it as the cumulative growth issue. So the TA considers selected Royston area committed developments and this generic tempo growth, but the pressure from, say, Barkway Village, for example, is actually absent. Barkway already has allocated and committing housing growth, so BK2, BK3. BK3 is going to have 140 dwellings. And while the construction has not actually begun, the processes are almost signed off on. So it's much further along than this development. And many journeys towards Royston, the A14, Cambridge, they're all going to use Barkway Road as an obvious and attractive route. So I think the cumulative pressure from growth on the Barkway Road has actually not been properly answered by the TAs. So in summary, the modeling may be internally consistent. I'm not doubting that, but it has not been shown to be robust or reliably predictable. This is particularly important, I think, alongside the objection issued by the highways in 2022, which has already been mentioned. The objection arose because the original transport mitigation could not be delivered. And HCC considered that without such a connection, the impact on Barkway Road and the A10 gyratory would be too severe. I think the acceptability of the scheme actually still should therefore depend heavily on whether these alternative sustainable access measures are realistic in practice. And as we've heard from the other councillors, they don't think that's the case. And as a resident, I would also concur that's not the case. And so in my view, the TA has not really evidenced sustainable transport as a viable alternative means. And that's why we oppose it, or I oppose the development. And so I should have said right at the beginning, I'm happy to be asked questions or cross-examined.
Thank you. Do you have any questions? Okay. Anyone else? Yes. Yes, sir. Could you find a mic, please? Thank you. Hello, could I have your name, please?
Good afternoon. My name's Paul Taylor. I'm a resident at the top of the Barkway Hill. So I have trouble getting out there, turning sometimes, and it's dangerous to cross the road as well because the cars are doing, like, instead of doing 30, they're doing 40 to 50 to 60 mile an hour coming up the hill and going down the hill. I also spoke to somebody who lives at Grange Bottom who knows all about farming and that, and when they done the soil, they graded it at 4, and he said it's graded at 2, which is really good farming land. So this is one reason why that shouldn't be built on. Yeah, crossing on foot. Yeah, there's been over 1,000 homes built and being built in Royston. South Cams want to build 1,400 houses. That's just coming up. The other side, the 505, which is north of Royston, which that's not encroaching on Barkway Road, but it's going to should be coming into how many houses are being built in Royston, and that should be looked at as well. While this is going on, the houses can't sell up where the Barkway Road is and Beldham Avenue. This is why this shouldn't be done. And also, if it does go ahead, I think the prices for the houses will come down because of the houses that will be built behind them and the traffic flow down the Barkway Road. And if you let this go ahead, the amount of lorries that will be coming up the road will be horrendous. And also there could be like 50 vans coming up there night and morning. So I think if everybody in this room lived up at the Barkway Road, we wouldn't be sitting here now. And that's all I've got to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Anyone else? Okay. Are we ready to start examination in chief, Ms. Pindham?
Yes. Sorry. Yes, Mr. Hegarty will have to get himself situated.
Thank you. I'll give Mr. Hegarty a couple minutes to settle
Thank
at
you.
the witness table. Thank you.
Now, should we try to see if we can both have our microphones on at the same time?
Yes,
Okay.
hopefully.
Brilliant. All right. You are Ken Hegarty. You are director and owner of Hegson's Design Consultancy UK Limited. You have a Bachelor of Engineering degree with honours in Civil Engineering, a Master of Engineering Science from the University College of Cork. You are a Chartered Engineer of the Institute of Engineers of Ireland and a member of the Chartered Institution of Highways and Transportation. And you have provided transport and highways advice relating to development for over 25 years in both the public and private sectors in the UK, Ireland, and overseas.
That is correct.
All right, let's go to the issues. Looking at the proposed scheme's accessibility by sustainable modes, what is your assessment of the opportunities for walking and cycling between the site and key destinations in Royston, taking into account the local topography and existing routes?
Yes, in relation to the site's location, I think it has been obviously identified by a number of the contributions today. It is on an elevated site, approximately, I think, about 45 metres above the town centre, and the main access is via Barkway Road. This, as it stands, would be the only option for sustainable transport modes in and out of the town centre. And it is obviously a road which a level of congestion can be experienced due to on-street parking, all legitimate, narrow footways, and I think in general there's a narrow carriageway along the section of road, which obviously restricts passing vehicles at any time of the day, which is obviously exacerbated at peak time. That being said, that is the key, I suppose, route in and out of the town centre. In terms of its accessibility to the key elements within the town centre, everything is possibly, I think, generally about 1 kilometre from the front of the site. So therefore, you are looking at a 1 kilometre walk uphill or downhill, pending the direction of travel, which obviously limits in terms of accessibility to the site.
All right. I should know better. Now that's
Sorry,
Barkway-
could you just pause just for
Oh,
1 minute? I want to lower the mics. Yes, go ahead.
It's like a forest of black stalks. Now that was Barkway Road, Mr. Hegarty. Can you please explain the significance of the proposed footway cycleway connection via Shrubbery Grove and the Green Walk Plantation to the site's sustainable accessibility?
Yes, in relation to the site, I suppose it's effectively 2 parcels of land, where Barkway Road provides access on the eastern parcel of land. The western parcel of land is isolated in effect by a distance from Barkway Road. A key aspect of which the appellant has identified would be a cycle and walking connectivity via Shrubbery Grove, which would, as I say, bring users, residents, visitors, etc. out onto the A10 to the London Road. While that is a very credible, as the crow flies, accessibility link, there is difficulty, as our understanding is, in relation to how that will be achieved. Currently, it is by virtue of I think it's PROW 9 is the public right of way, but obviously in its current state wouldn't be sufficient to deal with any increase in capacity or footfall along that section.
Thank you. And what is your understanding of the ownership position for that connection?
Yeah, our understanding of that is, and I think it has been confirmed just by a previous speaker, it is in the ownership of the Town Council, Royston Town Council, the Greenway or Green Walk Plantation. And again, our understanding and from a review of the application, there has been no commitment at any point in relation to that land being available to the appellant.
And in your professional opinion, what are the consequences for sustainable access if that off-site link cannot be secured or delivered at the outset?
I think without that link, you're looking at all accessibility via Barkway Road. As I had identified, is restricted in nature by virtue of property lines in terms of the width of footpaths, the width of carriageway, and how parking operates along that stretch. Therefore, you would be expecting all, as I say, all users to be heading eastwards onto the Barkway Road. Because of the extent of the site, you're looking at quite a distance even internally before any of the potential residents would reach Barkway Road. And that's ever before encountering the gradient difference between the frontage of the site and the town centre, should they be heading in that direction. So without any other link, there would be, I suppose, a difficulty in terms of convincing behavioural change within any residents or users of the site or visitors that cycling, walking and sustainable modes would be a viable option to gain access rather than the private car.
Thank you. And just thinking about what's proposed for the Shrubbery Grove link physically, what are the implications of the steps and proposed barrier arrangements, if I can put it that way, along that route?
Yes. I think it has been agreed through the planning process that the section as identified and the preliminary drawings that were prepared do not conform to the local transport note LT1 and LTN 120. In that sense, I suppose there's 5 core aspects of 5 core principles in relation to that, mainly being that it's a coherent link, that it's direct, that it's safe, that it's attractive, and that it's comfortable for use. On various aspects there, I think there's a shortcoming in relation to the design as it stands, in that the provision of steps does not allow a full cyclist route that is attractive. It's indirect in effect that people have to dismount. It's uncomfortable because some people may not be able to dismount. I suppose the current, range of bicycles that are available to us today are not just two-wheeler bicycles. You're looking at cargo bikes, which would not be able to negotiate any sort of a barrier in that region, even if they had to dismount. So it would really, I suppose, limit what sustainable vehicles could use that link. And also it would be a disadvantage and not an attractive route for vulnerable road users. Anybody that with a disability or with a mobility vehicle, again, will be excluded from using that. So it's not, as I say, inclusive in terms of its design. So there are a number of shortcomings in relation to that, because ultimately, I suppose, everything with LTN 120 is, I suppose, its guidance that should be adhered to be able to call it a credible cycle and walking facility.
Thank you, Mr. Hegarty. And final question from me before I hand you over to Mr. Chung. Could you please summarise briefly, in your professional opinion, whether the inspector can conclude that a genuine choice of sustainable transport modes would be available to future residents of the site?
Yes, indeed. I think due to the lack of an available connection that meets, I suppose, sustainable standards, and the fact that all, as I say, non-vehicular traffic would be required to use Barkway Road, there would be, in my opinion, it would be difficult to see how this site could be sustainable to achieve the policies that are set out in NPPF. And also the local plan. Ultimately, I suppose they want to have a genuine opportunity for a link, genuine opportunity for people to have a choice as to what form of transport they would like to choose. And I feel that the site's location, the infrastructure that can be delivered to meet that standard is shortcoming and will be difficult to support, in my opinion.
Thank you ever so much, Mr. Hegarty. Don't go anywhere. Mr. Chung no doubt has some questions for you. Thank you again.
Thank you, Mr. Chung.
Thank you, Ma'am. Good afternoon, Mr. Hegarty. I suppose one good thing about you being so far away is that you've got no chance of catching my cold. But this is the furthest I think I've ever been from a witness when I've had to ask them questions. So I'm working remotely, Mr. Hegarty. I'm using my computer to access the CD document. So when I ask you to turn up a document, you may actually have to give me some time to turn it up myself. Sometimes not easy to get hold of. And if you similarly, if you want to pause and get up a document because I've asked you a question, you want to go to the document, please say so. So the first topic, Mr. Hegarty, is highway safety. And I just want to pick up a couple of references, 2 or 3 references in your proof of evidence. So if we look at your proof of evidence, paragraph 3.6, you tell us at 3.6 that your conclusion is that sustainable transport modes are not provided and safe, my emphasis, safe and suitable access to the site cannot be achieved for all users. And then you come back to this theme about safety at your paragraph 5.8. You say at the beginning of your 5.8, it's my view the capacity and safety problems would be experienced if the only option for vulnerable road users, etc. And then at 5.20, my final reference, first bullet point, you say the development is not a reasonable and safe walking and cycling distance, etc. Now, if we, in the light of those references to safety, just have a look at your paragraph 2.3, where you actually set out the reason for refusal. If you look at the reason for refusal at 2.3, we're told the site of development failed to provide adequate opportunity for travel by residents and visitors by non-car transport modes. Now, just pausing there is no express reference to safety, is there, in the reason for refusal?
No, there's not.
No. Now, there is, though, to be fair, a reference to paragraph 116, contrary to paragraphs 110, 115, 116. And we know the paragraph 116 states that refusal can only be warranted if there would be an unacceptable impact on highway safety. You know that, don't you?
And I believe you're referring to 116 in the
That's right.
NPPF.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's the test in 116, is the unacceptable impact on highway safety. Now, if we turn up the council statement of case, the council statement of case is just do I have a CD? Do I have a CD number for that? I'm not sure whether the statements of case made their way into the CD. They didn't make their way into the documents, but I'm hoping that you have it as part of the information that was submitted to you. If we turn up the council statement of case, Mr. Hegarty, and you look at what was said by the local authority, just for your benefit, and I'm sure you know this, but members of the public, the statement of case is where the authority have to tell us what case they're putting forward and what case they're not putting forward so that we can prepare accordingly. And we see at paragraph 5.8, paragraph 116 of the NPPF was cited in the first reasons for refusal, but the council does not rely on this paragraph for the purposes of this appeal. Now, in the light of that, despite your references to safety, can we agree that it is no part of the local planning authority's case that, if permitted, this development would endanger the safety of road users, whether they be pedestrians, cyclists, or motorists?
I think in the traditional sense of safety, I acknowledge your point. However, in terms of a design for a piece of infrastructure, which obviously, and I appreciate again, it's not to a detailed design stage, that actually limits in terms of the width, for example, of the shared use area. It provides, elongated steps where obviously, a continuous cycle route would be far safer. I think in the context of that, I think identifying that the word safe in the 3 paragraphs that you have highlighted would be appropriate on that point.
Mr. Hegarty, I think I'm entitled to a straightforward answer to a straightforward question. This is important. I need to know whether the local planning authority is advancing a case that this development, if permitted, would fail the test at 116, that it would have an unacceptable impact on highway safety. Yes or no?
The council is not contesting in relation to 116 of the MPF in relation to the highway safety.
Right. But it's not highway safety. 116 is about safety, unacceptable impact highway safety. Now, highway safety means the safety of everyone using the highway. Now, which of course includes the footpaths. Are you saying that if this development is permitted, it would endanger the safety of road users? Is that what you're saying, contrary to what was agreed in the statement of case?
The statement of case was limited to paragraph 116, so I'm not quite sure where this is going. The reasons for refusal also include 110 and 115 of the MPPF. So I think it's fair to be comprehensive in the answers, or sorry, in the questions put.
No, I think I'm being perfectly fair, Madam Inspector. I want to know whether the council are running a safety case. A safety case is very different to a case which says the site is insufficiently accessible by non-car modes. They are two completely different cases. Am I facing, contrary to what was set out in the local authority statement case, am I facing a case on behalf of the local planning authority that people will be unsafe, that people will be in danger if this development is allowed? Is that the case I'm facing?
Can I have a yes or no and then qualify, please?
Can you rephrase the question? Or
Is
repeat the
it
question?
part of the local planning authority's case that if the inspector decides to grant the planning permission for this this scheme, that people will actually be in danger, that they will be unsafe?
Yes, you are correct.
What am I correct about?
There is an element of twofold, and I think I need to explain in relation to the safety of a design element that hasn't been designed. And I suppose the guidance that would be provided in relation to compliance of that infrastructure is unclear.
Right, I've taken that as far as I can. After this, I will make submissions. I've asked my question 2 or 3 times. Inspector has your answer, and she'll have to decide for herself whether that represents a clear answer to a clear question. The next topic is trip generation and highway capacity. Whilst we're on the statement of case that the council put forward, if you just have a look at paragraph 5.7 of the council statement of case, we see this in line with paragraph 115, which was one of the paragraphs cited in the reason for refusal, due to the aforementioned challenge in terms of topography, etc., lack of or unsuitability of sustainable transport routes, thus potentially increasing the reliance on single occupancy car travel for residents, congestion, and impact of operational capacity of the road network, which has not undergone significant detailed sensitivity testing throughout the application process. Do you see that? Paragraph 5.7 of the statement of case. Now, if you turn up in the light of that, could you please turn up CD 9.4, which is the transport statement of common ground with the local planning authority. And if you turn in that document to section 2.4, there's a heading, trip generation. And at 2.43, PDF page 8, it says it is agreed that the multimodal trip generation set out table 2.1 represents a worst case in terms of the number of car driver trips anticipated to be generated by the appeal development. You see that?
Yes.
And then at 2.44, after the bullet points, the local planning authority will not be raising further issues in relation to trip generation at the inquiry. So can we agree that despite the fact that this matter was highlighted by the local planning authority's statement of case as an argument that would be made, namely whether the modelling sufficiently showed what the impact would be on capacity, despite saying that this was an argument that the local planning authority would make, that's what he said in his statement of case, when you came on board, Mr. Hegarty, presumably you double-checked the appellant's work, the agreement with the local highway authority, and you agreed that that work was robust, and that's why you've signed this statement of common ground to say you're not running these arguments. Is that correct?
That would be correct, yes.
So it would follow from that that your analyses found nothing that would support the concerns that are now being raised by Mr. Hayder on behalf of the Residents Association. That's correct, isn't it?
What we have raised is in relation to the sustainable transport and the non-car usage in relation to the site.
Yes, I know that.
Connectivity.
My question is slightly
It's not-
different. My question is this, that the council said it was going to run these arguments about congestion and modelling and trip generation. You then got together with Mr. Frisby and you decided to sign this statement of common ground. Before you signed this statement of common ground to say that you would not be running any of these arguments, you agreed with me that you looked at the work that Mr. Frisby had done, you looked at the work that the local highway authority had done in this regard, and you decided that that work was robust, didn't you? Otherwise, you would have ran the argument that the council said it was going to run in its statement of case, wouldn't you?
Yes, indeed, yes.
Yeah. So my
And
follow-on question from that was, you clearly found nothing that would support the concerns that are now being raised by Mr. Hayder on behalf of the Residents Association. That's correct, isn't it? That must follow as a matter of logic.
not in relation to the trip generation and
No.
the traffic on the highways. That was not something
right.
that was included. And I suppose for the record, the statement of common ground was signed later
Yeah.
in the process.
Back to your proof of evidence. And the next heading in my cross-examination notes, Mr. Hegarty, just for your benefit, the inspector's benefit, is the phasing of the package of transport-related improvements. The phasing of the package of transport-related improvements. Your paragraph 4.2 the third bullet point, you say that if the development comes into being, then the phasing of the package of sustainable transport-related measures, in particular the measures proposed on the non-committed adjoining lands, would not render the site sufficiently sustainable in transport terms from the outset. See that?
Yes.
Now, you use the phrase in particular, but the only non-committed adjoining land is the improvements proposed to public right-of-way 009, the link to Shrubbery Grove with the Green Walk plantation. That's right, isn't it?
That's correct.
So you're not alleging that there are other measures that cannot be delivered in accordance with a timetable that's either been agreed with the local highway authority or can be agreed via conditions and a 106.
And that would be correct.
Yeah. So this phasing point relates only to the Shrubbery Grove issue. We'll come back to that later. And then if we look at the Transport Statement of Common Ground again, CD 9.4, Section 2.2, access arrangements, and it lists all of the arrangements that are being proposed there at 2.2 now. It also mentions the link to Shrubbery Grove, which is the last one. Other than that link to Shrubbery Grove, all of these arrangements are proposed to be in place before occupation of the relevant parcel that relies on that link. That's correct, isn't it?
That would be correct.
So, for example, we'll come on to this in more detail. The western parcel talks about a walkway to Grange Bottom, and therefore we have a condition that that has to be in place before first occupation on the western parcel. That's correct, isn't it?
That would be correct, yes.
And then paragraph 2.3 or section 2.3, which is headed contributions in the Statement of Common Ground. And at 2.33, we have a list, don't we, of all of the improvements that will be delivered by the local highway authority with funds provided by the appellant. Yes?
Yes.
And at 2.36, just so everyone is clear, the local planning authority will not be raising further issues in relation to the level of proposed contributions. That's right, isn't it? Yeah?
Yes.
You're not raising any arguments here that the level of contribution is incorrect, are you?
Not as part of this, no.
Now, as for the phasing of those matters to which we make a contribution, it's for the local highway authority to decide the phasing of such works, isn't it? If the local authority wanted the appellant to deliver those works, it would have said so, but that's not what it wants, is it? It wants the money, and it wants to decide when it wants to deliver those infrastructure improvements. And that's a matter solely for the local highway authority. We can't dictate to them, can we?
No, we can't. No.
No. And in making its decision, Mr. Hegarty, the local highway authority, making its decision that it wants these contributions and that it wants to decide when it's going to do all of these works, it was obliged, wasn't it, to have regard to its statutory obligation to ensure that development is sufficiently accessible, balanced against the need to ensure that the works listed are delivered in accordance with a timetable that makes the most efficient use of those funds, minimizes disruption. That's right. Those are the sort of things local highway authorities have regard to. That's correct.
In principle, yes,
Yeah.
that would have fallen under the local highways.
Are you suggesting to the inspector that the local highway authority's judgment in this regard, i.e. the contributions, the phasing of what he's going to do with those contributions, those works listed at 2.33, that his judgment about when and how they should be delivered are so unreasonable that the inspector should in fact rule that this proposal should be rejected unless and until the local highway authority changes his mind about how and when the works listed at paragraph 2.33 are delivered? Is that any part of your case?
I think it's while the local authority have made their judgment, I have made, as I say, my judgment and my opinion in relation to what has been presented, and that's what we have presented our case on.
Yeah, you've made your judgment about accessibility. I'm asking about 2.33, just so there's no doubt and no room for doubt between us in terms of what it is we disagree about and what we don't disagree about. 2.33, it lists the works that we're going to pay for or make a contribution towards, and that are going to be carried out by the local highway authority in line with a phasing program that they have determined. And my question to you is, are you saying that they're so unreasonable that the inspector should say, well, no, what do they know? This should be done by reference to some other phasing. That's no part of your case, is it?
No, that wouldn't be something I would question.
No. And I promise we'll return to Shrubbery Grove and its phasing later. So that deals with the things that we are not arguing about. So next is all about accessibility. And the next topic that I have for you is, well, what does local and national policy say about accessibility by non-car modes? The starting point, Mr. Hegarty, is the development plan, isn't it? That's the basis for making decisions. And what we see in national policy is another material consideration. That's correct, isn't it?
That's correct.
And whilst national policy sets the overall objective or goal in terms of maximising non-car accessibility, it's for each local planning authority, through its local plan, to decide what is or is not reasonable and achievable in its area, having regard to the broader planning imperative of meeting housing needs. That's correct, isn't it?
Yes, that would be correct.
And neither you nor the council's planning witness, Mr. Connell, have suggested in your written evidence that local plan policy on accessibility is somehow inconsistent with the NPPF, have you? That's not part of your case either.
Not that I'm aware of. No.
No. Now, the only local plan policy cited in the reason for refusal we saw at your paragraph 2.3. Remind yourself, if you want, your paragraph 2.3, where you set out the reason for refusal. The only local plan policy cited was SP9. That's right, isn't it?
Correct.
And we know the rule is that if the local planning authority want to say that there are other policies which are breached, they should, and presumably they would have cited them, wouldn't they?
That would be correct, yes.
So let's have a look at the local policies on accessibility. And if we turn up CD4, which is the development plan, and we see in CD4.1, I've got electronic copies, so I'll give you the PDF number, which is PDF 10. We see policy SP6, and it's headed Sustainable Transport. Yeah? And the first thing we can note, can't we, Mr. Hegarty, is that SP6 is not cited in the reason for refusal, and the local authority appear to think that there's no breach of SP6. That must follow, mustn't it?
Yes, that would be correct.
Let's have a look at what SP6 says. We will deliver accessibility improvements and promote the use of sustainable transport modes insofar as reasonable and practicable. Note that? So it's caveated with insofar as reasonable and practicable, isn't it?
Yes.
And then criterion B, encourage development in locations which enable sustainable journeys to be made to key services and facilities. Criterion C, work with Hertfordshire County Council, neighbouring authorities, etc., to ensure that a range of sustainable transport options are available for all potential occupants or users. This may involve new or improved pedestrian, cycle and passenger transport, links and routes. Now, just pausing there and thinking about that criteria, Mr. Hegarty, it's right, isn't it, that both the appellant and the planning officers of this council did work with the county council, and they agreed and remain agreed that a range of sustainable transport options are available to future occupiers and users. That's the position, isn't it?
By virtue of that, yes.
And then criterion D, seek the earliest reasonable opportunity to implement sustainable travel infrastructure on strategic housing sites and other development sites in order to influence the behaviour of occupiers or users, along with supporting travel plans, etc., making sure that sustainable travel patterns become embedded at an early stage. Yeah, and once again, there's an element of flexibility, isn't there? It says seek the earliest reasonable opportunity, not necessarily prior to occupation, prior to use, but the earliest reasonable opportunity.
Yes, that would be
Yeah.
as written, correct.
And then criterion F, require applicants to provide assessments, plans, and supporting documents to demonstrate the safety and sustainability of their proposals. Yeah. Now, it's right, isn't it, that the appellant has done that to the satisfaction of the local planning officers and the local highway authority. There is no assessment, plan, or document that they have required for us to demonstrate the safety and sustainability of our proposals that we have not applied, that we have not supplied. That's right, isn't it?
Yes, that would be correct by virtue of the reason for refusal.
And then there's some explanatory text to the policy. Yeah. So paragraph 4.69 at the bottom of page 10 sets out, doesn't it? Well, it says this, and I'll ask you the question. National and local policies and guidance seek to reduce the growth of car usage and achieve greater use of more sustainable modes of transport. Is that an accurate reflection of what national policy seeks to do?
Sorry, could you repeat that?
Do you agree that that's an accurate description of what national policy seeks to do? Reduce the growth of car usage, achieve greater use of more sustainable modes of transport.
Yes, that would be in principle.
Yeah. So
It's the principle behind it.
the plan makers haven't got national policy wrong. Paragraph 470. The primary responsibility of ensuring that this goal is realised is so the primary delivery transport provision in North Hertfordshire rests with Hertfordshire County Council as the local highway authority. You see that? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So the primary responsibility for ensuring that this goal is realised, i.e., seek to reduce the growth of car usage, achieve greater use, more sustainable modes of transport, the primary responsibility lies with the local highway authority, doesn't it? That's
Yes.
their role.
As written, yes.
And the person or the body that has primary responsibility is of the opinion that this development is sufficiently accessible, having regard to considerations of reasonableness and practicability, aren't they?
Yes. While I can't speak for them, then yes, by virtue of their position on the application, that would be correct.
Yeah. And then 475. However, national policy also recognises that the scope for passenger transport and or other sustainable transport measures may be more limited in some locations, and there's a reference to the NPPF. Best endeavours should still be made to ensure that the best outcomes can be achieved for all new developments, regardless of their location. Yeah. So just in terms of looking at this policy, what is required are best endeavours, get best outcomes. It is not a policy that requires a particular minimum threshold to be met as a pass-fail test, is it?
No.
And then that is underscored, isn't it, by 476. In pursuing this approach, we need to take a pragmatic and realistic approach. Yeah?
Yes.
Okay. So that's policy SP6, headed transport, sustainable transport, and tells us what it is that we should be measuring these proposals against in terms of what the policy requires and the caveats. Now, if we then look at SP9, which is cited in the reason for refusal, that starts at PDF page 23 of the document. And I'm assuming that what you're relying on, the authority, because it simply tells us SP9, is criterion C and 2 and 3 in particular, create integrated, accessible and sustainable transport systems with walking, cycling, public transport designed to be the most attractive forms of transport, effectively linking to surrounding areas, provide a clear structured hierarchy of pedestrian-friendly streets, well-connected footpaths and cycleways, integrated wider built and natural environment in the communities. That's what you're focusing on. That's what you have a concern about, and you think this proposal doesn't do it. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you very much. Now, it can't be reasonably suggested, can it, Mr. Hegarty, that this policy, SP9, requires something more exacting than SP6, because that would mean there was an internal conflict in the plan within the space of a few pages, wouldn't it?
Yes, that would be correct. Yeah, there is an overlap there between policies.
So, given that we have SP6, especially headed up sustainable transport, when we're applying SP9 and assessing whether a development complies with these accessibility requirements, do you agree that our inspector should bear in mind what SP6 requires and everything we've covered regarding what's reasonable, what's practicable, what's pragmatic? All of those things we have to bear in mind, don't we?
Yes, indeed. Yeah.
So that's local policy in terms of the yardstick by which we're measuring whether this proposal succeeds and should be granted or not. And then if we have a look at the problem with this work in the computer is you minimize things and you've got 101 things minimized. MPPF next, national policy. So national policy, paragraph 109E. Paragraph 109E. So it starts off, transport issues should be considered from the early stages of plan making and development proposals, including using a vision-led approach to identify transport solutions that deliver well-designed, sustainable, popular places, etc. And this should involve E, identifying and pursuing opportunities to promote walking, cycling, and public transport use. Yeah?
Yes.
Now, sort of a common sense question. You can only identify and pursue the opportunities that exist, can't you?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah. And then paragraph, so that's the process. You have to identify and pursue those opportunities that exist to promote those sustainable modes of transport. And then paragraph 110 tells us what we're looking for. Locations which are or can be made sustainable. So that this is a location that offers a genuine choice. Yeah, that's the test, isn't it? Does it offer a genuine choice to transport modes?
Correct. Yes, that's the test.
And just in layman's terms, that means that if I live on this development, if I don't want to take the car, the question is, do I have a reasonable alternative?
Yes, that would be the question.
And then at the bottom of paragraph 110, national policy acknowledges that the extent to which there's a reasonable alternative, how much of a reasonable alternative, how many reasonable alternatives, how good, this will vary from place to place, and that will have to be taken into account, won't it?
Yes, indeed. Yep. Site specific.
So when national policy talks about that these solutions will vary and has to be taken into account, that is echoing, isn't it, what we saw in local policy about being sensible, pragmatic, realistic.
Yes, in light of having a genuine choice.
Yeah. And then paragraph 115. Ensure that sustainable transport modes are prioritised, taking account of the vision for the site, the type of development, and its location. Yeah. So you've got to take account of the site and the location, don't you? when applying this idea that this objective of prioritizing sustainable transport modes.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah. Okay, so that's what the policy is, local and national. So the next topic that I have is headed opportunities and genuine choice. So we've identified what the tests are, identify and pursue the opportunities, and then ask, is it a genuine choice? So what I'd like to do next, just so you know where I'm going, is to consider each of the travel corridors which link this site into Royston services and facilities. And in respect of each corridor, you and I are going to discuss, Mr. Hegarty, have relevant opportunities to improve and enhance sustainable travel options been identified and taken? And then ask ourselves the question, will the resulting corridor offer a genuine choice to travel by non-car mode? So those are the two questions that I'd like to consider with you in respect of each of the corridors. So the first corridor I'd like to ask you questions about is Barkway Road. And the first topic within that is opportunities identified and taken, as I said would be. Now, it's correct, isn't it, Mr. Hegarty, that the appellant and the local highway authority have worked together since 2020, 6 years, to identify what accessibility improvements can be made along this corridor? That's correct, isn't it?
Yes, that's my understanding.
And everything that the local highway authority thinks can reasonably and practically be done, the appellant has either agreed to do or agreed to fund. That's right, isn't it?
Yes, from the record.
Yeah.
That would be correct.
So let's have a look at CD 9.4. CD 9.4 is the statement of common ground. And just want to remind ourselves what these opportunities were and what we've done. So paragraph 2.21 there's a list of the things that are going to happen. So firstly, new bus stops on Barkway Road at the main access with footway provision and tactile crossing to allow people to cross the road at this point. That's correct, isn't it? That will be provided.
Yes, yes.
And then there will be an internal footpath within the development, and we will enhance public right-of-way 16 so that it connects to a new footway which will be provided on Barkway Road itself, which in turn connects to the existing footway on Barkway Road. That's right.
Yes.
Yeah. And then if we then turn to, so those are the two of the things that have been identified as opportunities to help with sustainable transport, and those opportunities have been taken. The works will be done as required by the local highway authority. And then if we want to see the other things that will be done, we need to take up the proof of evidence of Mr. Frisby. And so if we just take up Mr. Frisby's proof of evidence. And turn to PDF page 22. PDF page 22. And it's it's section 4.3, sustainable travel proposals and travel plan. And the measures are listed under 4.31. So if you look at the second bullet point, the speed limit on Barkway Road southwards is going to be extended to 30 miles per hour to make it safer for cyclists, correct?
Yes.
And that will be an improvement, won't it, Mr. Hegarty, for existing cyclists, not just those that will be living on the new development if permitted. So there's an element of betterment, isn't there?
Yes, on the basis that it would be enforced.
And then there's the sixth bullet point. There's a number of bullet points here. I lost count of them all, but the sixth bullet point. There's an existing crossing just north of Shaftesbury Avenue, and that's going to be upgraded to a puffing crossing, isn't it?
Yes, that's my
Yeah.
understanding.
So once again, there's an element of betterment because it will help the new residents, but it also help the existing residents who are crossing over there. And I think we heard someone earlier today saying that it was a tricky road to cross at present. You recall that?
Yes.
The seventh bullet point, there's a VRS east of Limekiln Close, and that's going to be removed because the local highway authority say that removing it will make this route more suitable for sustainable and active travel. That's right, isn't it?
Yes, that would be what was agreed.
Yeah. The eighth bullet point, there's going to be signalisation of a crossing of the Barkway Road just south of Prince Andrew's Close, which will make it easier for existing and new residents walking into town, because my understanding is the local highway authority think that currently it's unsafe. Is that correct?
I can vouch for that.
Yeah.
'Cause that would be obviously the local highway authority.
But that's what they have told Mr. Frisbee, and they want that upgraded, and the appellant will do that if this development goes ahead. So once again, there's an element of betterment, isn't there? Because he's going to assist people who are currently using that road and crossing.
Yes, that would be correct. And I must say, I would acknowledge the suite of I suppose interventions that have been identified through the process.
Yeah. And then if I'm walking down Barkway Road, I finally get to the bottom of Barkway Road, I need to cross over to Market Hill. And this is going to be, there's a zebra crossing, which is going to be upgraded to a signalised crossing, improving linkages to the town centre. Yes?
Correct.
And then there's a final bullet point there. Further improvements for those who want to walk or cycle. There's going to be upgrading the existing path between the Brambles and Studlands Rise First School. See that?
Yes.
Now, if we then go back to the yardstick by which our efforts should be judged, paragraph 109E, you have not identified, have you, any further opportunities that you say exist and which could have been taken to improve accessibility along this route, but have not been taken?
No, we have not. No. As obviously we would not. That was I suppose determined by the highway authority.
Yeah.
On this occasion.
And so we can agree that everything that is reasonable and practical now, so I've applied national policy, I'm now applying local policy. We can agree that everything that is reasonable and practicable has been done to improve and enhance sustainable travel, haven't we?
By virtue of that, yes, that will be what was agreed.
In your proof of evidence, you mention on a number of occasions the needs of those who are mobility impaired. And we can agree, can't we, that many of these measures will address their needs, don't they? The puffing crossing, the signalised crossing, removing the Barkway Road VRS, providing accessible bus stops, they're all designed to help those who are mobility impaired.
Yes, on the basis that they can actually get to them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that leaves your concern about gradient, but there is nothing that can realistically be done about the gradient, is there?
No, that's in relation to the site's location.
Yeah.
Correct. Yep.
And that takes me on to my next topic under this corridor, which is genuine choice. Does the Barkway Road corridor provide a genuine choice to travel by non-car modes? The first thing we can consider there is that if I live on the site and I don't want to take the car, the obvious first choice is to take a bus, isn't it? Yeah.
That would be a matter for an
Sorry,
individual. to make.
can we not have any laughing or noise from the back? It can be very distracting. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Planning isn't particularly amusing, but I'm glad people find it amusing. I find it rather dull. I just do it for the money. But I don't see what's particularly amusing about talking about buses. Now, is there anything particularly amusing to you, Mr. Hegarty, that if I'm living on the site and I don't want to walk, I can catch a bus as a transport planner?
Based on the availability of buses, then that is one option.
Thank you. I didn't think there was anything particularly untoward about my question. Okay, so I can take a bus. Now, the guidance is the stops should be within approximately 400 meters, which is approximately 5-minute walk. And the bus stops that we propose here will be in line with our guidance and accessible by suitable and safe routes, won't they?
Yes, it would be accessible on Barkway Road in its location, as proposed.
So we're providing bus stops. They're within the reasonable walking guidance. They're safe and they're accessible, and they've been designed with the needs of the mobility impaired in mind. Once at the bus stop, it's a 5-minute journey into Royston town centre, where, as a resident of the site, I can access, amongst other things, shopping, Tesco, the railway station, the bus station, can't I?
Yes, by virtue of a bus, yes.
And by no stretch of the imagination can it be said, can it, Mr. Hegarty, that a 5-minute journey is too long, that it's going to put people off who want to catch a bus?
Based on, I suppose, availability and frequency.
Availability and frequency we'll
obviously
talk
there are
about.
other factors in people's
Yeah.
choices in relation to their choice of transport.
I'm doing this in stages. Is there a bus? Yes, there is. Is the bus stop within a reasonable walk guidance? Yes, it is. Is the route safe and accessible and mobility friendly? Yes, it is. Is the journey time so excessive that I'm going to think, well, I'm not catching the bus, it's going to take me ages to get there? No, it's not. It's 5 minutes. All of that is agreed, isn't it, Mr. Hegarty?
Yes, that would be correct.
Okay. Frequency. The latest published frequency, Mr. Frisby tells me in his evidence, in his rebuttal, was June 2025. And on the basis of that frequency, the local highway authority made clear its position of no objection, didn't it? It knows what the frequency is, and he didn't say, well, buses are not a reasonable option, they're not frequent enough. That's right, isn't it?
Again, not being able to speak for that, but it would, by virtue of that, it would give the impression that yes.
Yeah.
That was it.
Now, I don't think there's any dispute about what the services are, because they're in the timetable. If that's changed again, nobody's told us, and if they have changed, no doubt somebody here will bring it to our attention. But the services are 7 services a day during the week and 5 at the weekends. Now, if the local highway authority wanted us to improve bus service frequency, which sometimes local highway authorities do, they would have asked us to, wouldn't they? But they haven't. That's correct, isn't it?
Again, I'm not privy to any discussions, but from what I can see,
I'm simply drawing what I say are logical and obvious inferences. This is your opportunity to say to me, well, that inference is neither logical nor reasonable. If you want to say that, you can, and we can have a discussion about it. But their view must be that this is an acceptable level of service for a market town of this size. Otherwise, they would have said, you need to put money into improving the bus service or improve the bus service. No occupation until the bus service is improved. All of these things happen routinely, don't they? But they haven't happened in this case, have they?
On the first part, yes, in my opinion, I agree with you.
Yeah.
As I say, I don't know the detail of any discussions that may have happened, but by virtue of what has been agreed, we can take that.
And it wasn't just the local highway authority, was it, Mr. Hegarty? Because the planning officers, the local highway authority has an important input when it comes to sustainability, etc. But it's an input, they're a statutory consultee. That is then taken on board by the planning officers of the council, who look at everything in the round and decide whether they agree or disagree. And that was supported by the planning officers of the council, who know their area and they know what's reasonable and practicable in terms of bus service provision and frequency. And they didn't say either, did they, to the local highway authority, how can you possibly tell us that the frequency is sufficient. This is nowhere near sufficient. They didn't say that, did they?
Not that I'm aware of. No.
No. What the local highway authority did want was a contribution with the ability at their discretion to use that to fund greater frequency of the bus service if and when they think it's desirable. Yes?
Yes.
Yeah. So on the basis of all of those questions and answers, on what basis do you say that the bus does not represent a genuine non-car choice for me if I live on that site?
I suppose in relation, it brings back to my point. It's all down to frequency and availability and the end user as to what they need, whether it is a realistic and genuine choice for them. It is one aspect. There are obviously a commitment towards provisions, which is welcomed. But as I say, it's an option, whether it's a genuine option for all, whether it's accessible to all. That's obviously just a matter of choice.
No, but the inspector needs to know, Mr. Hegarty, doesn't she? On the basis of, I mean, I haven't drafted all those questions and asked all those questions just for the sake of my health. I've asked them for a reason. And the reason is to get to the end point, does the bus represent a genuine non-car choice? And I'm saying to you that if I live on that site, yes, it is a genuine non-car choice. If I don't want to take the car, I can catch the bus.
It would be a choice subject to each individual's requirement, like any public transport service would be.
Yeah, like any public transport service would be. Well, let's just examine that last point a little further then, Mr. Hegarty. When we talk about non-car choice, in this particular point we're talking about buses, we've seen what the policy is, what's reasonable, what's practicable, etc. It is not reasonable, practicable, or pragmatic to say that when we're talking about buses as a non-car choice, a bus should be available for each and every individual to fit each and every individual's timetable when they want to catch the bus. That's simply not workable, is it?
No, that's not what public service.
There will always be somebody who says, well, I start work at 4:30 in the morning. There's no bus.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hence where I say it is a choice.
Thank you. So the next topic is walking. Now, we can only do this in stages. Otherwise, we get ourselves confused. Well, I certainly do. So let's talk about walk distances and times, and then we'll come back to look at the gradient and what difficulties, if any, that presents and what extent of difficulty. According to CD 1.7, the DAS, PDF 10, the walk times to the town centre are around 15 minutes and the railway station is around 20 minutes. Now, Mr. Hayder has some other distances in his proof of evidence, but it's around about that time, isn't it? Give or take a few minutes either way.
From my site visit and from walking the route from the train station, I would say it's probably significantly more.
Okay, well,
than 15 to 20 minutes. And as I say, I don't want to go into the gradient, but even on a flat time, I would suspect it would be longer.
Okay, well, that's what it says in the DAS. There's no point us arguing about these things because the inspector can just walk down herself and time the walk.
Correct.
Yeah. And similarly for the for the railway station. Are you able to point me to any guidance which suggests that these walk distances are unacceptable because they're not manageable by the vast majority of people should they choose to walk?
Guidance would only be in relation to your normal walk speed and distances and times in relation to that. What would be acceptable to one person may not be acceptable to another.
Yeah.
What is achievable by certain people would be certainly a matter again for a genuine choice for them to have to make.
Yeah, but Mr. Hegarty, I mean, I've come across these several times, as you can imagine, these accessibility and walk times, etc. And as I'm sure you have as a transport planner, it's right, isn't it, that there is guidance, and we can turn it up if you want. But walk times, 20 minutes, 25 minutes, are perfectly reasonable and doable for those who want to walk, aren't they?
For a cohort, yes, that will be acceptable, but not everyone. I think, again, as we say, like using a bus, it works for some people, not for everybody.
Right. Well, we'll come back to what the test is. You know, who are we asking about? You know, in terms of ability, age, mobility, etc. But the vast majority of people, you see, you can't have it both ways, can you, Mr. Hegarty? You can't say, or we as a society can't have it both ways. We can't say we should all walk more. Walking's really good. We shouldn't take the car. And as soon as somebody asks you to walk 25 minutes, you say, well, I'm not walking that far. It's ridiculous. Can't have it both ways, can we?
No.
No. So if the inspector agrees with me, they're asking someone who wants to walk, who's interested in walking, interested in leaving the car behind, asking them to walk 25 minutes to the town centre is not unreasonable. Just bear with me there. Then just another point. These distances, if you want some other comparator, these distances are comparable, aren't they? Leave the gradient to one side, and in some respects better than for existing residents who live in other parts of the settlement, aren't they? Have you considered that? Have you considered the people who live in the northern part of Royston, how far the distance is for them, or those who live to the east? Have you looked at the other existing parts of the settlement and said, well, are these walk distances materially longer from this side than they would be from the existing settlement? Have you considered that point?
I think in relation to that, it is site specific because circumstances are different.
Yeah.
Gradients are different. We can't divorce ourselves from that.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, let's talk about gradient then. The first point, as we've already accepted, is that there's nothing we can do about it, and that's agreed. The second point is that the gradient is the same for many existing parts of the town, aren't they? Including, nearest to the site, the area around Shaftesbury Avenue. That entire area around Shaftesbury Avenue and the roads that come off it, they are equally at the top of the hill, aren't they?
Yes, indeed. Yep.
Yeah. And yet residents who want to walk, choose to walk, do walk, don't they? As you no doubt would have observed on your site view.
Yes, there would have been an
Yeah.
observation of some people.
So despite the gradient, people are walking and people are actually living on a similar topography to the site. Then after that, we have to make a judgment, don't we? Bearing in mind everything we discussed about what's reasonable, what's practicable, in terms of what is achievable, in terms of sustainable transport. And if you have a look at CD 3.8, which was the consolidated officers' report to council, to the planning committee, and it's PDF page 19. PDF page 19. And it's paragraph 4.3.12. And about 2/3 of the way down, the officers say, due to local topography and other off-site constraints, it's acknowledged that whilst local services would be accessible, journey times are likely to be above average when travelling southwards from the town centre to the site. This is not considered to be a significant obstacle to the development. Yes. On balance, the master plan is considered to illustrate acceptable and deliverable active travel connections to existing local services. Yeah. So, yes, there's a gradient. Those who don't want any challenge on their walk would rather the gradient wasn't there. But the question is it a significant obstacle? And the answer is no, it's not. Because people are managing it. People are managing it now, and people will manage it if this development goes ahead. That's right, isn't it, Mr. Hegarty?
Sorry, is that a question, or
Yeah.
you provided the answer?
Yeah, no. I'm. That's my proposition to you. This is your opportunity to say, you're completely wrong, Mr. Chung. You're off your head. Where are you come from? I'm saying to you, it's perfectly acceptable. People are doing it at the moment. There's a gradient. It's not unmanageable, is it?
It is manageable for certain people.
Yeah.
And people make that choice, but whether it's a genuine one that's accessible and inclusive for all parties, my opinion is I would debate that.
Okay, right. So that I told you we'd come back to that, and we will. So we're going to do that now. I say to you, and we're going to have to decide this, the inspector will ultimately have to decide. I say to you that the test isn't, can somebody who has an impairment do it? The test is, can the vast majority of people do it? The vast majority of able-bodied, reasonably fit people, can they do it? And I say to you that that must be the test, mustn't it? Do you agree or disagree?
In response to that, it is dependent on whether you are trying to be inclusive or not.
Yeah.
While an able-bodied person is capable of doing that, it would be a choice. And as you identified yourself, for certain people, wouldn't make that choice, and 25 minutes might be too far in the gradient.
Exactly.
So to give I suppose, give one answer to fit all, it's down to a personal choice.
Yeah. You see, it seems to me that you do agree with me, Mr. Hegarty, that for the vast majority of able-bodied people, this gradient isn't a problem. What you seem to be saying is, well, it would be a problem if they were not able-bodied. Now, I just want to consider that for a moment. If you decide that the test is going to be someone who is not able-bodied, the problem is you don't know what your reference point is, because depending on the degree of disability or infirmity, you may not be able to walk 5 minutes. That's right, isn't it?
Yes, that would be correct.
And that's why the test has to be, can the vast majority of reasonably fit, able-bodied people do it? Not can a 99-year-old do it? Not can someone who's severely disabled do it? That can't be the test, can it?
No, but they might be a cohort.
They may be a cohort.
Can someone with shopping coming back from the town centre be able to do it? Can someone going to the school run, can they do it? Can somebody with a double buggy do it? There are a number of cohorts that need to be considered to be inclusive.
There are a number of cohorts that need to be considered to be inclusive. There are some people who, unfortunately, are not going to be able to do it. And they're not going to be able to do it even if there was no gradient. That's right, isn't it? All that means is that if you remove the gradient, the cohort who can do it goes up, but there will always be people. There will always be people who can't do it. That's right, isn't it, Mr. Hegarty?
I would disagree, because I don't think it's attractive.
Yeah.
I think people would make a decision because of the gradient. I don't think, as I said earlier, that it can be held separate in relation to the site-specific conditions.
But how many? That's the question, isn't it? How many? How many people? Yeah. If we use the what I say is the correct text, can a reasonably fit, able-bodied person do it? How many people in that cohort are going to be put off by the gradient? And I say it's not a significant number. I accept, Mr. Hegarty, and we can agree that because of the gradient, there will be some people who are elderly or infirm who, if the gradient wasn't there, would be able to do it if it wasn't there, but can't do it because it is there. That's reasonable, isn't it?
Yep, that's a reasonable comment.
Yeah, that's a reasonable comment. Yeah. And the test is what is reasonable, what is practicable, what is pragmatic. We can't get rid of the gradient, but what we can do is ask, does it represent an obstacle to the vast majority of people? And the answer is no. That's right, isn't it?
I wouldn't strictly correct. I think it is an obstacle.
What, an obstacle to the vast majority of people? Is that what you're saying, Mr. Hegarty?
Yes, I think so, because I think on observations, I don't see massive number of people walking or cycling along that route. So
What do you mean a massive number of people? On what possible basis are you going to make the judgment about what a correct number? You're going to go then do a survey as to what you would what numbers you would normally see
No,
going up
but-
and down a hill?
but perhaps your survey information might have shown that.
Yeah. I mean,
So-
what is your answer? What is your answer, Mr. Hegarty? Are you?
Uh,
I just need to make a note. Are you saying to the inspector, and she'll have to go away and make a judgment of what she thinks about your judgment, that the gradient is such that the vast majority of able-bodied people are unable to manage this?
I think it was summed up. You might do it once, you may not do it, and you may make another choice. That would be my opinion on that.
Right. So the inspector can take that away, and your judgment is that the vast majority of people can't manage this gradient. Yeah.
No, that's not what I said. I said you
Well-
would make a choice after doing it once, because it is a difficult situation. There is a difficult topography that we cannot.
Mr. Hegarty,
Draw
I've
a
done this
blind
job
eye.
for a very long time, so don't fence with me. I just want a simple answer to a simple question, because I'm telling you what the test is, what the reasonable test is. If I'm wrong about that, I'll find out in the inspector's decision letter. Are you saying that this is unmanageable by the vast majority of people?
Yes.
Right. This gradient is unmanageable by the vast majority of people. Well, that's what the inspector will have to consider. That was the evidence, Mr. Hegarty, when she sits down to write a decision letter. Now, so we did the various measures that are going to be taken along this corridor earlier. So the next topic is cycling. So if you take up the TA, which is CD 2.13,
2 point.
13, madam. CD 2.13, page 10, CD page 10, PDF page 10, and it's figure 2.1, which is looking at the cycle times towards Royston town centre. Now, it gives you the cycle times. We'll consider the gradient in a minute and the difficulty of the gradient, etc. But in terms of just time, how long it would take you to cycle is something that would be off-putting for people. So along the Barkway corridor, we're told it's 9 minutes into town from the eastern parcel, and probably a bit longer, a couple of minutes longer from the western parcel. That's correct, isn't it?
Yeah, it would be in that region of that time, depending on your.
So depending on where you're
But-
going from, the eastern or the western parcel, between 9 and 11 minutes. Yeah. Now that's by any stretch of the imagination a reasonable time, isn't it, to be able to get to the town centre and access all the facilities that are there in the town centre? Or are you pointing to some guidance which says that a 9 to 11 minute cycle journey is prohibitive?
No, I think that would be an acceptable, normal cycle time.
Yeah.
That people will be able to make a choice on.
Yeah. In terms of ability to do it, as far as Barkway Road is concerned, as far as I can see, Mr. Frisbee tells me it's a normal road like any other road. Yes, there are cars parked along the road, but roads have cars parked along the road. Are you suggesting that cyclists don't cycle along roads with parked cars?
No, I do not suggest that.
No. Can we also agree that in terms of safety, speed is the biggest determinant of collisions, isn't it?
It would be yes.
Yeah. And this is a slow speed environment, 30 miles per hour, and the parked cars actually act as a traffic calming measure, don't they? That's correct, isn't it?
It would have a posted speed limit, and yes, parked cars do interfere with the normal flow of traffic.
If the local highway authority believe that cyclists would be unsafe using this route, they have a statutory duty to flag it up, don't they?
Yes, I would.
As far as gradient is concerned, there is no guidance, is there, which sets a maximum gradient for existing cycle routes, is there?
For existing, no.
And once again, as far as the gradient is concerned, we're back to where we were in terms of walking, which is that for the vast majority of those who want to cycle, there'll be some who don't want to cycle. They're not cyclists, they're not interested in cycling. But those who choose to cycle for work, for shopping or leisure, the vast majority of people can cope with this gradient, can't they?
I think in relation to recommended gradients, it's well above what would be recommended. I appreciate it as an existing situation. So to allude to the fact that a gradient that does not conform with LTN 120, to say that the vast majority of people would be able to do it, I would question that.
Right, but you've agreed with me that there is no guidance that addresses existing gradients. LN20, is it LTN20? Well,
Right.
LTN20 is guidance for when you are devising new or building new infrastructure. And we'll come on to that in a moment. It does not apply, does it? Just so that we're absolutely clear, it does not apply to existing cycle routes. There's nothing out there, no guidance that I know of, Mr. Frisbee knows of, and nothing alluded to in the local transport plan or in local policy, which says that there is a maximum gradient for cyclists as regards existing routes. That's
No, I would agree with that, yes.
So I come back to my point, which was the point I put to you was that the vast majority of those who choose to cycle, who are cyclists, and that's an option that they use, will be able to manage the gradient. And are you saying no, the vast majority will not be able to manage the gradient?
The vast majority of people, I would question whether they're capable of dealing with that gradient if people were to cycle.
So you said the vast majority, you question whether they can cope with that gradient.
Yes, obviously uphill.
Sorry?
To clarify, obviously the gradient uphill.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So before we even consider the other routes available, it's right, isn't it, that as far as the Barkway corridor is concerned, you have the option to get the bus, you have the option to walk, and you have the option to cycle. And the only point that you're making to the inspector is, well, it's uphill, and there are some people that won't be able to cope with it because it's uphill. Is that it?
Yes, and I would feel that that route would be not inclusive.
And that takes us back to the point about inclusivity. Are you saying that every route has to be suitable for everyone, regardless of their impairment? That wouldn't be very practicable, would it? I thought we agreed that earlier.
No, but it would be an aim. And therefore alternatives to address that should be sought to make any site accessible.
Yeah. You can't, once again, you can't have it both ways, can you, Mr. Hegden? You can't agree with me that that it's not possible to have routes which are it's not reasonable or practicable or pragmatic to say that every route should be accessible to everyone, regardless of the degree of disability. You can't say that on the one hand and then say, well, this route isn't inclusive. Can you? Which test are you applying? Are you applying a test of inclusivity, one which says every route has to be suitable for everyone, regardless of their degree of impairment? Is that the test you're applying?
Well,
Or are you applying
that
the
would
test
be
of
an
impact?
ideal world, I think,
Sorry?
wouldn't? I think we'd all agree that would be the ideal world to achieve that where best possible.
The ideal world, okay, the ideal world. But we saw what the local policy, the local policy isn't about ideal world. National policy is not about ideal world. It's about being pragmatic, reasonable, and practicable, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Okay, so so that was the Barkway Road corridor. The other way of walking into town, if you turn up CD 2.2, you will see the master plan. And if you make your way to PDF 17, you'll see the master plan framework there. So once again, the first topic under this corridor is opportunities identified and taken. If you look at the master plan, Mr. Hegarty, you see that, that those residents in the western parcel will have the opportunity to walk or cycle into the eastern parcel through the primary road, which is marked as 4 on the master plan, and then pick up the Barkway Road corridor and that route that we've discussed. That's right, isn't it?
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah. But for those living in the northern section of that western parcel, the appellant, working with the local highway authority, have identified an opportunity to provide a link to Grange Bottom to cut down the walk distance. And we can see that at 13, can't we? Point 13. It shows where the link would be.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah. And a link will be provided via a walkway. And if you turn to CD 213, CD 213, Appendix B, which is PDF 50, that gives you more details about the walkway, doesn't it?
Yes.
So applying the MPPF test of identifying and pursuing opportunities for sustainable access, once again, this has been done in respect of this parcel, hasn't it? Or are you suggesting there were other routes that could have been identified and pursued?
I understand other routes had been identified and pursued.
Yeah.
And to be fair, I acknowledge that the 2 identified routes was where I suppose those routes got to.
Yeah. So
yeah.
We'll come on to Shrubbery Grove because that's the only other one that you talk about in your evidence. But all I'm doing is in stages trying to communicate to you, hopefully get your agreement for the inspector's note that wherever there's an opportunity, possible opportunity, we can only identify those that exist. We've identified it and we pursued it. And you agree that as far as the western parcel on that northeast corner is concerned, we saw an opportunity and we pursued it. And that would present a genuine choice for those who wish to walk into town, wouldn't it, from the western parcel?
Yes. Yeah.
We then come to Shrubbery Grove. And so while we've got CD 2.13 open, which is the TA, if we have a look at PDF page 48, there's a plan there. And we know that this is public right-of-way 9. It runs through the green walk plantation. And before we come on to the works proposed and the position of the town council, etc., it's possible, isn't it, as matters stand, to walk or cycle from the northern edge of the western parcel straight onto the public right-of-way, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Access is provided.
Yeah. So you can walk. We did it. There's no obstacle to. Let's say this development goes ahead, and you see what we propose on that plan. There are marked in that blue color of the tertiary streets, etc. Yeah. So you can, at the moment, and you would be in future, put to one side the works of improvement. It would be possible for people living there to just walk in and pick up the green green walkway, wouldn't it?
Yes. Yeah. That connectivity
Exists as we speak, and it will remain after the development if the inspector is minded to grant it. And it is possible both to walk, and some people we know use it to cycle, don't we?
on my site visit, I didn't observe that, but I appreciate that some people would be able to and probably would use that as a cycle route, albeit in the condition it's in.
Yeah.
Madam, we're talking about a footpath, so it would be prohibited to cycle it.
Sorry, I haven't invited contributions yet from interested parties. Thank you for raising that, Mr. Hall. Well, can we continue?
Yeah. Now, people can walk, people can cycle. Whether it's prohibited or not, we know that people do it, don't we?
As I say, I didn't observe it, but I would have thought, looking at experience, people probably have done that.
Yeah.
Either legally or illegally.
And in terms of, we'll come back to the position of the town council, but their position at the moment, it seems to me, they didn't want to answer any questions, is that it's so desirable that they don't want to make any changes to it. That's correct, isn't it?
I can't answer for the town council.
Well, have a look at CD 8.61. CD 8.61. The Royston Town Council. Consultation date Wednesday, the 5th of November 2025. Yeah. So we know from the timeline that this was after the committee had already resolved to refuse permission. Yeah. Last paragraph. This is areas of valued natural space designated for the enjoyment and well-being of residents. It also serves as an important wildlife haven at the heart of the town. It represents a vital element of Royston's green infrastructure. Now, you would have, on your site view, Mr. Hegarty, observed that it can't be the case that it's a valued natural space, a vital part of the GI of the town, but it's undesirable for residents to walk it, can it? It's obviously a desirable place for people to walk, and people are walking it, aren't they?
Yes, people would walk it.
Yeah.
I obviously can't address other matters that wouldn't be related to that.
No. So assume that none of the improvement works we propose are possible because of what the town council say. Let's assume that a person living on the new development, if it's permitted, has a genuine choice, if they want to walk through here and link on to Shrubbery Grove, don't they?
Yes, an informal or informal arrangement exists there presently.
And as far as cycling is concerned, local people say, oh, well, they shouldn't be doing it, it's unlawful. Well, the inspector will have to make a decision about, well, is that enforced? Who's enforcing it? If it's currently being done, who's going to stop it? But it's right, the cyclists, I mean, I saw the topography there. It's right, isn't it, to be fair, that some cyclists may have to dismount for a few yards if they want to get down onto Shrubbery Grove.
Yes, I would imagine so.
Yeah.
And considering it is as well, they should be dismounting.
But that's a long way from saying it's not suitable for cyclists. Simply because I have to dismount from my cycle for a few steps doesn't make it unsuitable, does it? Doesn't mean that it's undoable. Cyclists dismount from cycles all the time for a few moments.
That would be the case. They do dismount, but whether it's attractive and a comfortable route for them.
Yeah, well, the
That
inspector
is
can judge for
debate.
herself.
Yeah.
For some people, you know, depending on what, once again, back to impairment and infirmity, for some people, maybe not. Maybe getting off the bike and getting back on again may not be an option. But I would have thought that for the vast majority of cyclists, getting off their bike and getting back on it is not particularly challenging. Would you agree?
Well, I'd agree. They obviously have to do it at the start and end of the
Exactly.
journey.
That's what I was
So it
thinking
is
when you-
physically
when you
possible.
made your
one
point
would
in chief.
expect. There would
yeah.
be some, but I wouldn't imagine in the current, I suppose, the current condition of that route that it would be attracting anybody other than those on two-wheel bicycles.
And to be fair, I like to think that I've been perfectly fair in where I pitch this matter. There will be times of the year where that route will be less attractive than other times of the year. If it's February and it's freezing cold and it's wet and muddy underway, I may not really fancy that link through to Shrubbery Grove. That's correct. Whereas if the weather's like this, I might think it's very pleasant.
Yes. Yeah, that would be correct. Safe on a number of accounts. Yes.
Yeah.
Conditions and otherwise.
Yeah. But just because it's not available all the time doesn't mean that we should discount it as an accessible choice for all those times of the year that it is available. That's right, isn't it, Mr. Hegarty?
That would be correct, but not ideal.
Not ideal. Back to the ideal again. Now, so that was Western Parson and Shrubbery Grove in terms of just getting the context right. So back to my two questions about opportunity identified in genuine choice. I think we've kind of done the genuine choice bit as far as that is concerned. But as far as the opportunities identified and taken, there is an opportunity, isn't there, to improve this public right-of-way. In theory, there's an opportunity to improve this public right-of-way by providing for hard surfacing, lighting, cycling, etc. And then it would become, depending on the design, potentially it could be made suitable, certainly more suitable all year round, couldn't it?
Yes, but I think even the appellant has clearly earmarked in agreement that it would not conform to LT 120 standards.
No, but that's a point of agreement amongst us. But once again, it would certainly be an improvement on leaving it as it is, wouldn't it?
There would be a level of improvement, but depending on what the design would be.
Yeah.
Clearly there would be standards for new infrastructure as you flagged when we discussed the Barkway Road.
Yeah.
So we're providing a substandard improvement.
Yeah. There's a point of agreement that he would not comply with the LTN standard. Yeah. Would not comply. But we know, well, I'll put to you how this came about, and you can tell me whether you know. If you don't know, I can get Mr. Frisbee to talk about it, or Mrs. Els to talk about it. But this idea of providing hard surfacing, lighting, cycling, it all emanated from the sustainability officer at the local planning authority. Now, if he or she didn't think this was an improvement on the existing situation, they wouldn't have been putting it forward, would they? Mr. Hegarty. I mean, it's just common sense, isn't it? It may not conform with the LTN standard, but nobody would be spending money proposing to do this if it wasn't an improvement of what was already there, would they?
That could be a view that would be taken, yes.
Yeah. Because if after spending all that money, it's still the same in terms of its attractiveness, why would anybody spend the money? That's simple terms, isn't it, Mr. Hegarty?
Yeah, naturally.
Yeah.
You'd want to get some improvement for it. Yeah.
So the idea is there's an opportunity to improve this. It may not be perfect, it may not conform with the LTN stuff, but there's an opportunity to improve it. Now you say your paragraph 5.4, let's just go back to your evidence. As far as I am aware, this is your second sentence, as far as I'm aware, no attempt was or has been made to obtain agreement to facilitate the provision of sustainable transport measures outside the sound boundary, in particular the non-committed land. We're talking about the Shrubbery Grove connection, aren't we, Mr. Hegarty? That's right, isn't it? That's what you're talking about there. Is that right?
Correct.
Yeah. Now, that's not right, is it, what you say there, Mr. Hegarty? Because Mrs. Else, who sits to my left, and the appellant's team, wider team, made a considerable effort over a considerable period of time to liaise with the town council and others, and in fact did secure their consent to allow this link to be upgraded. That's what happened. Were you aware of that when you wrote 5.4?
As I stated in my evidence, my understanding was there was no agreement at any stage.
No. Well, that's a different point. There's no agreement at any stage. We'll come back to whether there was an agreement or not. As far as I'm aware, no attempt was or has been made to obtain agreement. That's simply wrong, isn't it? A huge amount of attempt was made. Meetings were held. And indeed, as I'll show you in a moment, agreement was secured. So it's wrong to say, isn't it, that no attempt was made. And this goes back to my paragraph 109 point. Did we identify an opportunity? Did we pursue it? Yeah. And what I'm saying is, it's wrong to say to the inspector that there was an opportunity, we didn't pursue it. We did pursue it, didn't we? Do you agree?
On what you state there, yes.
Yeah.
If that is the case.
So let's have a look at CD 8.60. So we saw what the Royston Town Council was saying after the committee had already made its decision, what they said in writing, because they made the same point, as I understand it, at the committee meeting. They made the point at the committee meeting that they would not give their consent. That's what they said at the committee meeting, and then they put it into writing in the CD we went to before November 2025. But as I mentioned to you before, Mr. Hegarty, this went on for 6 years with the appellant working with the authority, the officers, and everybody else concerned. That's why we take objection to you saying that we made no attempt. So have a look at consultation date Tuesday the 16th of May 2023. Yeah. So if we have a look at what the town council was saying, they say we resolve to object to the proposal on the following grounds, and they make a number of points, all of which the inspector will no doubt have regard to. And one of the things they say at the bottom of the first page is the proposed development has little provision for sustainable travel measures in order to achieve a significant switch to walking, cycling and public transport. Now, just pausing there, at that point, the town council knew that we wanted to work with them to improve, to whatever extent we could, the walking, cycling provision. And one way that could be done was to improve the access through Shrubbery Grove. And this is what they said at the end, the very last paragraph. Members agreed that in the event the planning permission were to be granted, they would be minded to cooperate with the delivery of the cycle route link crossing Green Walk Plantation. To this end, they would grant permission for the applicant's consultants to access Green Walk Plantation, undertake an ecology survey work. This doesn't prejudice the town council position and their fundamental objection to any development on this land. So what they were saying was, we don't like this development, we're opposed to it, we object to it, but without prejudice to that, if it happens, we would cooperate with the delivery of a cycle route link. So to say that we made no attempt is wrong. We made an attempt. We actually secured this position, which is set out here, that they would cooperate for a cycle link to be provided. And then it was the town council that resiled on that position. Those are the facts, aren't they, Mr. Hegarty? Did you investigate those facts before you set out what you did in your proof of evidence?
Yes, and as I stated, my understanding was different to that.
And despite their change of position, Mr. Hegarty, which they communicated to the planning officers, neither the planning officers nor the local highway authority have changed their position from one of supporting this development, have they?
No.
You say in your paragraph 5.7, you use the terminology, this renders such a cycle route undeliverable despite the appellant's reliance on it. Now, once again, that's not accurate, because if you look at our TA, which I'm sure you would have read, Mr. Hegarty, we were at pains to make clear that we do not rely on it, that it would be desirable to upgrade it, but our position is that it exists at the moment, it's usable, as you and I have already discussed, and in any event, the Barkway corridor by itself presents a genuine choice of non-car modes of travel. So it's wrong to say that we rely on it. That's not correct, is it?
It would be my view that the site would rely on it to provide as much connectivity as possible.
No, well, that's a different point, isn't it, Mr. Hegarty? It's one thing to say the appellant relies on it. They did rely on it, and now they can't deliver it. That's one point. A different point is to say that I, Mr. Hegarty, say that this route is vital, and without it, this development is not sustainable. They're two different points, aren't they?
Yes, they are. Yeah.
Thank you. And leaving to one side whether these works of improvement eventually are carried out or not carried out, even as matters stand, for those who choose to go through Shrubbery Grove, pick up the Green Plantation, go into Shrubbery Grove, there's a further opportunity that was identified and pursued, which was to fund the upgrading of the A10 footway to provide for a segregated footway cycleway along this route, wasn't there?
Yes, indeed. Yes.
Now, in your proof of evidence about these works, and a question mark which will come up, we'll address in closing, about what we say is the probability that these works of improvement will take place, but your point here is about genuine choice, and one of the things you say is that the design that's being put forward would be substandard, and there is an agreement that it would be substandard compared with LTN1. But just in terms of just make sure that we're accurate, much of your proof of evidence talks about steps, etc. But if you look at Mr. Frisby's proof of evidence, and I'll get him to cover this, 4.32. And we'll have to think about the conditions in terms of the town council's position that they won't allow this to happen now. They've changed their mind. But what he does tell us, Mr. Frisby, is in the first bullet point, the Shrubbery Grove connection will be secured step-free by condition, with level rest points provided along the gradient, as confirmed by the senior transport policy officer. So I'm not saying to you that it will ever be compliant with LTN. It won't because of the gradient, etc. But when you say that there will be no rest points, that there will be steps, that's not necessarily the case, is it?
Well, based on the evidence provided and the drawing provided for the application, it identifies steps
Yeah.
It is not compliant, as we all appreciate. There are gradient issues, there are radii issues,
Yes.
there are surface treatment issues.
Right.
There are a number of, I suppose, aspects that don't meet the 5 core principles in LT
Yeah.
N120.
And I have never put to you that he will meet all of those principles. The way I put it to you was that if these works of improvement go ahead, they will be an improvement. The clues in the title, they're works of improvement. They make the position better and more attractive than it is at present. But all I'm simply pointing to you is that it's not necessarily the case that there will be steps, that there will be no rest points, because that's not what the position is as far as Mr. Frisbee and the Senior Transport Policy Officer are concerned. It can be provided step-free, and it can be provided with level rest points. That's right. That's their position, isn't it?
It would seem to be that position, but as I say, there is no evidence of that.
Well,
And
that is the evidence. Is Mr. Frisbee telling you at 4.32? That's what he says, and then that's what the Senior Transport Officer says. Is your point? I haven't seen a plan.
Yeah, but previously there was an acceptance from the appellant that LT1 and 120 couldn't be achieved. Now we're saying that we could be going somewhere closer. So there is discrepancy, I suppose, there in relation to what was.
Let's be clear. I have not said to you that LTN 120 can be achieved. It can't be because of the gradient. It can't be. I'm simply saying to you that certainly as far as making it step free and providing rest points, that certainly can be done. So it's important to avoid the error of extremes, isn't it, Mr. Hegarty? Just because
Yes,
we can't.
but we have to be cognizant of
Yeah.
the fact that, as you had clearly identified earlier, any new infrastructure should be meeting the standards.
Well, that brings me on to my next point. Any new infrastructure should be meeting the standards, right? Well, first of all, now that we've identified what actually can be done and what can't be done, and it's not as extreme as you say, this is guidance, LTN 120. It's not binding on anyone, is it?
No, there can be some relaxations.
The local highway authority considered the proposed design and were satisfied with it, weren't they? They didn't say, oh, well, we see what you propose. It's an improvement, but because it doesn't comply with the standard, that's it. We attach no significance to it. They still sought it. They still do seek it. If they say if you can deliver it, it would be a good thing. That's right, isn't it?
That was their view.
Yes. Are you saying that if it is delivered, it's not a good thing? That it's not an improvement on the existing situation as regards accessibility? We're back to where we began. It certainly would be an improvement, wouldn't it?
It would be an improvement,
Yeah.
but is it inclusive? And does it address the vast majority of the requirement that it's aiming to achieve?
Well, I go back to my point that it's suitable at most times of the year for the vast majority of people now. It would be even more suitable for the vast majority of people if the improvement works went ahead. And yes, I say that there are some people for which it would not be suitable. And I say that that's a fair representation of the position. Do you agree or disagree?
Again, I would disagree with the number of people it would be
No.
beneficial to, because there are varying requirements.
And in terms of deliverability, will it be delivered? I've drawn your attention to what the town council originally said. We know what they now say, and beyond that, deliverability is to some extent a matter of planning, which is for Mr. Connell, and to some extent a matter of law, which is for closings. So that's all I have for you, Mr. Hegarty. Thank you for answering my questions. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you very much.
Thank
We
you.
have questions for you.
Sorry.
And if you do, ma'am, as well, yeah.
I'm just mindful that we've had quite a long time since a break. So I'd like to have a short adjournment until 3:30. The inquiry is adjourned. Thank you. 3:31, the inquiry is resumed.
Ma'am, before learned friend Mr. Pindham
Yes.
re-examines, I've been told by Mrs. Else that I misspoke about something, and I think it's important that I just correct that before we go any further forward.
Yeah.
So I said to Mr. Hegarty that the appellant's team and Mrs. Else met with the town council about these improvement works to Shrubbery Grove. That is not accurate. What happened was that the planning officers of the council, in particular the sustainability officer, were keen on these works of improvement, and they asked us whether we would be willing to pay for them or do them if they could get the consent of the town council, and we agreed. And it was the council that met with the town council and secured that agreement, if you want to call it agreement, that was set out in the document that I took Mr. Hegarty to. So it's wrong to say that we met directly with them. No, we didn't meet directly with them. The suggestion came from the council. We said, yes, we are on board and willing to pay for those works or do those works if the town council are wish to be cooperative. And the council secured that agreement, in inverted commas, from the town council that they would cooperate with those works if permission were to be granted. And then, of course, as we've seen, they've changed their mind. So that is the accurate position. So it's wrong to say that we met with the town council. We did not. Apologies for that.
Thank you.
Ma'am, if you're happy for me to commence re-examination, I shall do so.
Yes.
And I, if you have any questions, I doubt anything would arise from that, but I would just reserve my position to respond if anything arises. Mr. Hegarty, you, at the very outset of your questioning by Mr. Chung, you were brought to the issue of safety and whether the council's case, what it was, I've written a note actually unsafe, actually dangerous. Do you have the MPPF to hand? If I can take you to paragraph 115.
Yes, I do have. Apologies.
That's fine.
It's in here somewhere. Yes.
All right. And that says 115B. It should be reading the first of the paragraph in conjunction with B. I should be clear. Should be ensured that safe and suitable access to the site can be achieved for all users. How relevant at all, if at all, sorry, is perceived safety of an active travel route?
Perceived safety would be a high element in terms of making the route attractive and comfortable for users. So the perception of a route is quite important to that, and that would relate to the width, shared use width, or cycle route width, as it would with a footpath width, and obviously any gradients or any curvature of that route would be quite critical.
Again, I think I can lead on the fact that you're here to defend the reasons for refusal on behalf of the council. Thinking about reason for refusal 1, it might help if you've got that. Have you memorized the text of that, Mr. Hegarty? I'm surprised if you haven't, but
It's in there.
Might help to have it in front of you.
Yeah. Yes, indeed.
Perfect. Now that, as you can see, it doesn't contain trip generation, modelling, etc., those factors. In your view, looking at the text of what is cited within reason for refusal 1, are trip generation, modelling methodology, etc., within or outside the scope of reason for refusal 1?
Outside the scope.
And final question from me on policy. Do you recall being taken to a variety of, through local and national policy, a variety of policies concerning what is reasonable and whether opportunities exist to promote active travel? Do you recall that line of question?
Yes, indeed.
If there are not reasonably adequate opportunities, if I can frame it that way, for sustainable travel, what does the sustainable travel policies in the local plan and the NPPF tell the decision maker to do? So if those opportunities are not available?
If they're not available, it's, I suppose, the key aspects relate to a genuine choice of transport mode, which is NPFF 10 or 110, apologies. Again, as stated, NPFF 115 is a safe and suitable access achieved for all users, not just a small cohort. And they would be the kind of key aspects in relation to NPFF or MPPF, apologies. And again, obviously, in terms of the local plan policy, it's in relation to having a walking, cycling, public transport being the most attractive mode choice for all users.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hegarty. Thank you, ma'am. Those are my questions.
I had a question about when we were discussing about step-free access to Shrubbery Grove. Could you tell me, in your opinion, whether that could physically be provided? Is it possible to provide a step-free access there?
In my opinion, in relation to the gradients and I suppose the scope of the area identified in the plan, it would seem difficult. And to be fair, a plan has been provided, shows, I suppose, the elongated steps. So if it was achievable within that scope of land, I'm sure they would have designed those out, bearing in mind the requirements of LTN 120. So my opinion would be it would be difficult to achieve that within the scope of the area concerned.
Thank you. That's the only questions that I had. And that wraps up the Mr. Hegarty's session. Thank you. And that wraps up what I have planned for today. We will be resuming tomorrow at 9:30 with a session for interested parties to provide any comments. And then we will be moving on to evidence in chief by Mr. Hyder. The inquiry is now adjourned. We'll resume tomorrow at 9:30. Thank you.